وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ. Now a very scathing criticism of that class. That second class of people. So one class of people don't know much about the religion. By the way, the reality right now for the Ummah is not much different from the Jews. Most Jews had no idea what the Torah was. Most Muslims today don't have any idea what the Quran is. They don't know. I mean, their parents made them memorize a couple of surahs. They maybe like recited the whole thing to a sheikh once when they were kids. And the moment they did, الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ, that's it. This book, I don't have to deal with anymore. I have graduated out of the Quran and I can do the rest of my life now. Right? I don't have to deal with the Quran anymore. The Quran was just a ritual that you pass through and then you move on with your life. And it's not their fault. That's just a culture that developed. Our job is not to cry about that culture, but it's to do something about that culture. It's to help that culture and to lovingly raise that culture. But here's what happens. The other class of people, there's this massive, most people don't know the book. But that means there's a small group of people that have done some Arabic study, they've done some sarf and nahu, they've done some tafsir study, they've maybe even gone to get a degree in Islamic studies. Is that the majority of the Ummah or the minority? The minority of people know something about Islam. They know, some know a lot, some know a little, but if you put all of them together in one group, there's still a very small population of the Ummah, right? The problem is this small population of the Ummah is actually now in a very dangerous position. Because they are leading basically the blind. They're leading the blind. And they can, whatever they say, people say, well, I follow him. Whatever he does, whatever he says. People come up to me all the time, hey, Ustad, what do you think about Islamic banking? And I say, I don't think about Islamic banking. No, but what do you do? I say, that's for me to do. No, but just what's your thought on it? I was like, I have a lot of thoughts on it sometimes, but I'm not going to tell you. What? No, I'm not asking you for a fatwa. I was like, yeah, because I wouldn't give you one anyway. I'm just saying, what's your preference? You see, you're asking me for my preference because you feel that my preference must be based on some exhaustive religious learning, and therefore if I tell you my preference, that'll be good enough for you. That's why you're asking me, which is basically a fatwa. That's because you're asking my religious judgment for myself. If it's good enough for me, it must be good enough for you. The problem with that is, that's not my area of specialization. That is a matter of Islamic law, and a very complex piece of Islamic law. Something that I'm certainly not qualified to delve into. If I have a question about it, I'll go to certain scholars and ask them. I can point you to them. I can tell you, here's the scholar I would ask. Here's the person I'd have a discussion with. But you're going to have your own discussion. You're going to have to learn that yourself, for yourself. If I started just openly saying my opinion about anything, there are people who say, and I've met those unfortunate people. I love them, but I also feel sorry for them. I just listen to Numan Khan, I don't listen to anybody else. What is your problem? Listen to everybody else, please. This religion, first of all, is way too big for one person. It's way too big. And I don't even teach the entirety of Islam. I teach a very, very specific piece of our deen. I'll try to learn it and try to teach whatever I can of it, the Book of Allah. Like, there are people that I go to study hadith when I have a question about hadith. I don't comment on hadith much because I don't feel qualified. It's not my area. I learn it, I study it, I sit with ulama with it, but I wouldn't teach it because that requires it requires a kind of brain capacity that I just don't possess. That's extremely intelligent people that are qualified to teach that subject. I wouldn't count myself among them. Allah actually made the Quran easy. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ, especially to give reminder, لِلذِّكْر, and that's what its role was. So your job and my job is to be that more educated class. Now if we don't have that, then now this criticism that we're about to read is of the knowledgeable class of people. So if myself included, those of you that are learners of Islam, those of you that are learning Arabic, tafsir, Quran, hadith, sharia, whether you're in an Islamic university or you're getting ijazah from a sheikh, or you're doing like tafsir halaqa, or you're studying and you've done it for a couple of years, these are the ayat about us. Allah is talking to the Jews, but He's never just talking to the Jews. He's always talking to us through them. This is the ummah that's on trial now. وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ. Don't dress and disguise the truth using falsehood. This is actually the word haqq means four things, but I'll start with one of the meanings, truth. Allah is describing a very particular strategy. Something is true. The Torah is true. you're going to disguise it with falsehood. And the word for disguise, talbisu, comes from the word libas. I think everybody here knows what the word libas means. What does libas mean? Clothing. Clothing. Don't put the garment, the clothing of falsehood on the truth. When you put clothing on, some parts are hidden and some parts are exposed. The face is exposed, but the body is hidden. For example, right now my hands are exposed, my arms are hidden. This is libas. Don't keep some parts of the truth so your conversation, your evidence, your discussion is still convincing, and then mix in with it your corruption. It's very easy for people who are knowledgeable in religion to quote half the text, or to quote one ayah or one hadith to make their point and not talk about how there's another ayah and another hadith that balances this point. There's an entirely other set of principles that you conveniently didn't mention, and you used good evidence, but you disguised it with falsehood. You understand? It's very clever, but it can be done. For example, about the Quran, we already read, يُضِلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَهْدِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. Allah misguides by means of this book many, and He misguides the corrupt, right? We read this before. It is very easy for me to say, the Quran hates women. Let me tell you why. And I could quote like 40 ayahs. I could do it. If I wanted to, I could do it. And because I've been studying Quran for a long time, so if enough waswasa shaitan did to my head, I would totally do it. And then on the other hand, I could give a lecture and say, the Quran loves women. Let me tell you why. And I could quote another 40 ayat. I could do that. I'll be very convincing too, let me tell you. I'll pound my head and like give a really emphatic speech, and people will take a clip of it on YouTube and throw it up and say, see, the Quran says women are cursed, or something. But you know what? As convincing as that is, I would be manipulating the text. I would have to keep some parts out, skip some things. The only people who'll notice that I'm doing that are who? Other scholars, people of knowledge. Most people will realize it or no? Nope. And when other scholars try to correct what I say, then the most people say, oh, you're just jealous. Right? Isn't it possible? There are people I've recently met or debated, a couple of years back actually, who basically said Islam declares war on all non-Muslims. And they had 40 ayat in their lecture. Ayah after ayah after ayah. Very powerful. And I'm listening to this speech and I'm going, wait, you're not quoting the next part. You're missing what are you doing? But if an 18-year-old is listening to this, قال الله تعالى كذا وكذا وقال. By the end of the speech, you're like, Allah says we hate non-Muslims. I totally hate non-Muslims. And he got so much dalil, man. He got so many ayahs he quoted. Yeah, you could quote. But when you don't give the text justice, you can disguise the truth with what? Falsehood. You have to let the Quran speak for itself. You can't selectively quote. If you selectively quote and you skip other parts or conveniently ignore other parts, then this is actually the ultimate crime against the Quran. And that's why you'll appreciate the next part. وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ. It's not وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَلَا تَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ. The la doesn't occur twice. In English we say, don't disguise the truth with falsehood, nor hide the truth. But the word nor is not there. There's no second la. So it's not neither nor. Neither disguise it, nor hide it. The word nor is missing. Why is it missing? Because now this becomes bayanu ma sabaq, which means don't disguise the truth with falsehood by hiding the truth. The ultimate way to disguise is to actually conveniently skip certain things, to not mention certain things, to overlook certain things. And this is actually a very serious disease in the ummah today. Very serious. You know, there are, I won't blame groups of people, so I like to keep things as general as I can. I am a student very much, but I'm an annoying student. I'll tell you that much about myself. I'm sure you find me an annoying teacher, I'm a much more annoying student. When I learn with a teacher and a teacher says, the Quran never says this or never says that, I immediately contradict them and say, what about this, what about this, what about this, what about that? Okay, fine. Let's talk about something else. I don't take things blindly from my teachers. I don't. Even if I respect them. And I respect them to death. But when they say something and it doesn't make sense to me, I tell them flat out right then and there. I don't say, oh, I should have some respect, I should stay quiet. Man, angels were not quiet in front of Allah. Are you really going to put him on the earth? He's going to cause corruption and spill blood. If angels can talk to Allah like that, you're a alim. I love you, but I'm going to talk to you like that. I'm going to say, this don't make sense. I don't get what this is. How can you make this conclusion? How do we draw this conclusion or that conclusion? So what's happened is I'm very blunt, right? And I don't do this openly, of course, ever. It's in private settings, right? So I'm sitting with a scholar, learning from him or her, and then they'll say something and I'll ask them, and I'll ask until I'm satisfied. And a lot of times my blunt questions, I get put in my place, most of the time anyway, right? So what happened though, one time, I want to share a story, and I'll keep the details so ambiguous so that you don't get to wonder and blame who it might have been. Okay, so I'm going to keep it as general as I possibly can. So I'm in this gathering of scholars. I'm the only non-scholar there. And I look like it too. Okay? I don't even know what I'm doing there. But I brought up the ayah about hitting women. I had just studied it that morning with another scholar, because I had questions about that ayah. And I was convinced what it's about, and this is not a halaqah about that. But anyway, I was convinced of what that is about and how it's not actually an open license to hit women or anything even close to that. And I studied it carefully with this other scholar, and I sat with this group of ulama, and I just wanted to see if I could stir some trouble because I was bored. So I was like, yeah, I was studying this ayah today, and I learned certain things, and here's what I learned. And they're all like, so what did you learn? And I said, well, it means this, this, and this, and it doesn't actually mean that you can just hit women. You know, that's not what it's saying. And to my surprise, this group of scholars said, yeah, of course. That's not what it's saying at all. And I said, and at that point, I couldn't hold it. I was like, but if that's not what it's saying and you're agreeing with me, how come you've never said that before? Because I've heard you guys and your larger group say things to the opposite effect. Why don't you ever share this conclusion with anybody? And the answer was, well, the people aren't ready to hear that yet. And I said, people aren't ready for the Quran? From scholars? What in the world does that mean? Well, you know, people are accustomed to doing things a certain way. If they hear these things, they might take it out of context, and they might, you know, women might get out of hand. Like, oh, thank you. I'm going to leave now before I throw up. You know, hiding the truth because you don't think it's suitable? Because you don't think it's socially acceptable? Or because your group doesn't like to think this way? Or you might end up disagreeing with the rest of your clergy? There are people who graduate from a certain school, a madrasa, whether it's in Egypt or in Pakistan or in Bangladesh or in Saudi or in, you know, in Jordan, doesn't matter. Somebody graduated, got a degree in Sharia from their school. They did their later studies and they decided that some of the things they learned from their school, they don't agree with anymore. They don't agree with. They're not in agreement with this fatwa or that fatwa of their school of thought. They still won't say anything. Your job as a scholar is loyalty to your school or loyalty to your deen. Loyalty to what you learned, the truth, the evidence, the word of God, the words of your Prophet ﷺ, or your school of thought. What are you here to defend? What are you standing up for? Well, I wouldn't want to, you know, because our elders wouldn't like. Your elders? Who's more elder to you? Who has more seniority to you? Where's the majd of Allah when it comes to this? Our loyalty is to the word of Allah. Some young guys came to me, they're studying traditionally, and I envy them. If Allah has opened the doors for you to study the tradition, please do. But wallahi al-azim, don't forget one thing. As much as you love your teacher, as much as you love your sheikh, as much as you love the one you're getting your ijazah from, and you have loyalty to them, disagreeing with them is okay, so long as you are absolutely convinced. And if you're not convinced of what they're saying to you, in light of what you've learned, your loyalties must remain with the truth. Don't become وَلَا تَلْبِسُوا الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ وَتَكْتُمُوا الْحَقَّ. Don't bring that into this ummah. It will only bring about destruction. Because then what will happen is you will mindlessly defend your school of thought. And they will mindlessly defend theirs. How dare you disagree with my sheikh? How dare you disagree with my sheikh? Everybody's defending their school. Nobody's defending the deen of Allah. That's what will happen. That's what will happen. And it's the sad tragedy of it is, the very ulama that they claim loyalty to, the senior ulama of most of these madaris, you will find they are far more open, far more intellectual, far more like, permissive and broad in their thinking. And their students down the trickle become more and more rigid. That's crazy. The higher up you go, you don't get more rigid, you get more open. You get more more courteous. There are people I met in one group, for example. I don't name groups, and don't use your imagination. People I met in one group, first time they met me, the way you dress like the kuffar. You have no knowledge. You have this. You have that. You have the. And they just trashed me. You should never even speak. I was like, thank you, Jazakallahu khairan. I'm gonna go finish my salah now. I prayed behind them actually that day. I was at an airport. Then later that month, one of the most senior ulama of that group, worldwide known, I ran into him at the airport. And he's sitting next to me. And he goes, "You look familiar." I said, "A lot of people tell me that." And he says, "Wait, my daughter watches your Quran things on her iPad." And I said, "Maybe." And he said, "I listen to it too sometimes, it's very good." And we started talking about Quran for like an hour at the airport. And then he said, "Come to my madrasa sometime." And I got really scared because I'd met people from that school who told me I'm pretty much a kafir. And now the head of that school is saying, "Hey, come sometime. Maybe you can give a dars of Quran to our students." I was like, "I don't think that's a great idea, but can I hide behind you when I come?" What you learn is people at the top are actually merciful, wise people, but they're surrounded by this labsul haqq bil batil. It's so sad, And it's really tragic that we've become this way. But this is something that was passed down from the Israelites. We're not supposed to follow this unfortunate legacy. Now, this is la talbisul haqq bil batil, the meaning of truth. The second meaning is purpose. Haqq also means purpose. Don't disguise purpose with purposelessness. In other words, this ummah always had a purpose. This deen always had a purpose. We are not Muslim just for ourselves. We are here to make shahada ala nas. We're supposed to be a testimony to all of mankind. The rest of mankind is supposed to see how beautiful the revelation of God is because of our existence. That is our purpose in existence. You see, when you do more dhikr, and you do more ibadah, and you do more worship, and you do fasting, and you recite Quran, who are you benefiting? Yourself. You're like that seed that gets the water, and it gets the sun, and it gets the nutrients, and it removes the weeds. But that seed is supposed to turn into a plant, and that plant is supposed to turn into a tree. And a tree doesn't benefit itself, it benefits others. We're supposed to be of benefit to others. We don't keep this to ourselves. That is our purpose. Our purpose is not self-service. Our purpose is not self-service. It's the biggest tragedy to me that we in the United States, for example, have masajid across America and our neighbors hate our guts because all they know is we park on their properties. And all they know is that we jam their, we create ruckus in their community or make late night noise and keep them up. And none of them knows goodness from us. And this is from a religion in which the Prophet ﷺ tells you about your 40 neighbors to your right and your left. How did that happen? We have a purpose. We have the purpose of sharing the beauty of this religion with our neighbors, opening our doors to them, letting them know. The police chief of Euless was here a couple of nights ago at iftar. I had iftar with him. And we just sat and chatted. And I talked to him about how our religion is all about Abraham. And they had no idea. And they're like, "I'm learning some really cool stuff." And he invited me to work out with him. I might go. He looks really buff though. I don't know what I'm going to do. But well, open your doors to these people. This is your purpose. Don't hide it. And they're being told, the Israelites are being told, because they started believing this religion is only for them. They're special. The only reason you were special is because you were supposed to model God's faith to all other nations. That's why you were special. وَتَكْتُمُ الْحَقِّ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And you're the ones who know. وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. Oof, Ya Rabb. Establish the salah and give the zakah. Isn't that something we're told all the time? Bani Israel is being told, establish the salah and give the zakah. Wouldn't you think that's the first thing that should be told? Not to the alim class. The alim class of people, the knowledgeable people, they actually already pray. They already pray. Their bigger problem is not doing justice to their knowledge. If you actually tell them to pray, they're the religious ones, they're actually pretty regular with their prayers. That actually got mentioned later. The first thing that got mentioned was you're disguising the truth. You don't tell the full meanings. You hide this stuff. You're always at the masjid, that's fine, but you need to get your act together and then establish the prayer. And it's almost as though Allah is saying, and that's when you're able to establish the prayer. Now establish the prayer. Don't tell me that you've established the prayer and you've fulfilled the rights of the religion. For the rest of the ummah, for the awam, for the la ya'lamun al-kitab illa amani, the most people, fine, you guys establish the prayer. For the ulama of the ummah, for the knowledgeable of the ummah, they better fix their relationship with their knowledge and the sense of responsibility and not hiding it and not self-serving. If they fix that, then they are in a position to establish the prayer. Because when they establish the prayer, obviously the most knowledgeable are the ones that lead the prayer. And when you lead the prayer, then you're in a position of responsibility. The umara of the ummah used to lead the prayer. This is not a small place. You know, alhamdulillah, now we want to encourage our children and we get them to lead the salawat for us. Just, you know, to give them courage and to, you know, listen to their recitations and, you know, also enjoy when they forget and all that, right? But originally, the position of leading the prayer is actually leading a community. That's actually what it's for. When did Rasulullah ﷺ ask Abu Bakr as-Siddiq to lead the prayer? He asked him to lead the prayer when it was symbolizing that he's going to be leading the ummah. Even if 4 or 5 of you are there and somebody's leading the prayer, they should understand they're in a position of responsibility. It's a heavy thing. It's not a light thing, you know? So now, aqimu salata wa atu. Because now be in a position of leadership. Now be in a position of leadership. And then the words, wa'atu zakah, really get me. Give zakah, give charity. It's so basic. Why even tell them that? You remember the commandment, when Allah spoke to them on the mountain? He says, I'm guaranteeing my mercy for which people? Those who give zakat. Remember that? You know what happens to this class, the corrupt religious class? Not all religious scholars are corrupt, please don't take that from my speech. But those that are, you know what happens to them? They're very good at fundraising for themselves. But they're not very good at giving. They feel like their existence itself is a charity to God, so they're entitled to all kinds of goodness for themselves. People should give them and keep on giving and keep on giving and keep on giving, but they don't feel the need to give. They don't feel the need to give. There's something very wrong when you have a scholar like this. There's something very wrong. That's not a good thing. You know? This idea, atu zakat, you need to lead the way in giving charity. You need to be the most charitable. You need to demonstrate not just how you know how to lead, but you know how to give. Wa atu zakah. But if aqimu salah and atu zakah is already mentioned, what's the point of saying warka'u ma'ar raki'in? That's how the ayah ends. Make ruku' with those who make ruku'. Ruku' is one part of the prayer when you're halfway bowed, yeah? Isn't that part of salah? Allah already said, aqimu salah wa atu zakah. So why say to them, warka'u ma'ar raki'in? What's the point of this conclusion? This is very powerful. The act of ruku', first of all, if you study the Jewish prayer, they used to have sajda. I actually found diagrams in the Jewish encyclopedia. You would swear that's Muslims. If you didn't know, you would swear that's Muslims. But then you look at the bottom Jewish encyclopedia, like, oh, that's them. Exact same salah, exact same posture of sajda. They'll ruku', now they don't go all the way. They go here, halfway. That's it. Not all the way. Who goes all the way? This is ruku'. What have you learned even since you were a kid? When you do this, what does your imam do? What does your dad do? What does your mom do? That's what they do. What they're supposed to do is right? This is ruku'. Who's doing that ruku' at the time of the Prophet ﷺ? The Muslims are. The Muslims are doing that ruku'. And you know what? When you say aqimus salah, the rabbis of the Israelites might say, aqamna salah, we have our salah, thank you. Wa atu zakah, okay, we'll give some zakah, fine. No, I don't think you understand. Warka'u ma'a raki'in. Make ruku' with those who make ruku'. By the way, what are the arkan of salah? The fundamental parts of salah. Qiyam, ruku', sujood. Everything else is interim. Basically it's qiyam, standing, ruku', halfway, sujood all the way, right? Ruku' is the middle part. Qiyam is the first part. When you say aqimus salah, it includes the qiyam. What was mentioned about Iblis? Sajda. What's left? Ruku'. The conversation about salah is actually being completed in pieces. Sajda was already mentioned. The thing left is ruku'. And actually, by comparison, in a literary sense, what the Israelites are being told, Iblis refused to do sajda. You're not even doing ruku'. His problem, sajda is all the way. I didn't ask the angels for ruku', I asked them for sajda. You're not even doing ruku'. وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ. And actually suggests, humble yourselves along those who have humbled themselves. Along with those who have humbled themselves. Don't think of yourselves as superior. This is the last 2-minute discussion that's left. Ruku', I try to tell you some significance of why ruku' is mentioned here. But what is this مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ? أَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَارْكَعُوا. Establish prayer, give zakah, and make ruku'. Why? With those who make ruku'. When you say with those who make ruku', you have to stand in the same line as them, or in front of them, or behind them. What do you have to do? Same line. When you stand in the same line, what does that symbolize? You are equal to them, and they are equal to you. You are not better than them, and they are not better than you. The rabbis believed, because of their knowledge and their superior, their credentials, that they are better than other people. They're higher. No, you need to demonstrate that you are one with the ummah no matter what you know. You are a servant of this deen, whether you're a alim of the highest caliber or a guy who works in the sanitation department. So long as you say La ilaha illallah, Allah has honored all of you. Allah has honored all. The only thing that makes one better than the other is taqwa, and taqwa is not a function of ilm. There are people who have no ilm but they have a lot of taqwa. And there are people who have a lot of ilm but they have no taqwa, and they're not worthy much to Allah. So, and since taqwa is something only Allah can judge, we are standing equal in our sufuf. You know, the Sahaba, we say there are ranks among them. But it's not like Abu Bakr, Uthman, Umar, first row please. Abu Sufyan, second row, third row. It's not like that. It's not like that. It's one row. And by the way, the munafiqun used to stand in the same row. In the same row. وَارْكَعُوا مَعَ الرَّاكِعِينَ is suggesting that the people who teach religion, the scholarly class, the da'i, the speaker, these people are supposed to humble themselves along everybody else who humbles themselves. I leave you with a story that personally touched me a lot because it gave me an opportunity to think. I went to Dubai and I had a long drive with a fellow. He was from Pakistan. He's been living in Dubai. He sends all of his money back home to his family. That's the story of a lot of people, right? So he drives this car and he's driving me to the hotel or whatever, and we just start talking. And he goes, I think I've seen you somewhere. Urdu, he told me. You know, aapko dekha hai pehle. And we just started talking. He had seen me on TV. There was some Urdu stuff I had done. And he'd seen me. We started talking. He goes, you know, I just do this limo driving, cab driving thing. You're so fortunate you get to study Quran, teach Quran. You should make dua for me. You know, I just do this dunya stuff. I was like, listen. Rasulullah says, Al-Kasibu Habibullah. The one who earns a decent living is the beloved of Allah. Is the beloved of Allah. You know, and when qutila duna malihi fahuwa shaheed. The one who was killed protecting his wealth is actually a shaheed. When you earn as Allah commanded you to earn, every minute you spend here and the money you're spending on your family, you're giving, you're constantly in an act of ibadah. You're constantly in worship. Just because I'm sitting in the back here, you're driving in the front here, we don't know who Allah loves more and who is more worthy to Allah. That is not a function of that. There could be the guy giving the khutbah and the giant masjid in the Muslim land is full of hundreds of thousands of people, and there's one janitor cleaning the wudu area. And maybe the guy cleaning the wudu area is more beloved to Allah than the khatib. That's very possible. That's the beauty of our religion. We're not better or worse than each other. We narka' ma'a raki'in. We humble ourselves along with everybody else who humbles themselves. Do not create this class society within the ummah. On the one hand, we are going to continue to respect our teachers and our scholars like we do our parents. Wallahi, the gift they give us of knowledge is a priceless gift. But at the same time, we will not allow that to turn into a class society. Because when that happens, then the same downfall that came to the Israelites will come upon us. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us from that. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an.